Well, to answer the question that I put in the title, no, Gary is not a bust. However, he has been a bit of a disappointment his first season as the number 12 overall pick, I think many people would say, especially when you consider the next edge rusher that was selected was Brian Burns, who's just been fantastic for Carolina. So, although they are different players, Gary is more of, I feel like, a physical guy as opposed to Burns, who's kind of more of just the pass rusher type. At the end of the day, I think that, some Packers fans have been very frustrated with the Gary selection. Some Packers fans are saying that, listen, we got to give him some time. So I figured I'll just give my thoughts on what I feel about Gary. And I think there's some things Gary does very well. Obviously, the key, I think, negative attribute is sort of that, he only got 2 sacks last year. I also think crazy he only got 250 snaps last season. So it's kind of, usually very bizarre when you give your number 12 overall pick a short amount of snaps. Part of it is because he was playing behind Za'Darius and Preston Smith. I think Green Bay probably didn't expect both of those guys to have such good seasons when they signed them, which is why they drafted Gary. But let's just get into, first I'm going to break down both of his sacks, because I think that there's actually some interesting stuff to talk about in both of the sacks. The first one is going to be this, and what's happening here is that you're going to have a tight end who's in the game. He's going to block Gary for a second, and then he's going to run out and run a route, and then the right tackle comes on, and he's going to finish off the block. So you have a chip here. So typically, I mean, when you get chipped, it can often take you out of the play. So the idea that he's going to get a sack on a chip is pretty promising. And what's going to happen is that, so he does get chipped, and he gets chipped pretty well, but at this point, he's in a position where he's far enough away, but still can now just sort of run and just put his head down, use his strength to his advantage, which is probably his best attribute, and just try to run over the tackle. And, Denver doesn't necessarily have the best tackle situation, so that's a good thing. And watch how he's able to, have that initial burst and run over and get a sack. Good play, right? Well, yeah. I mean, this is a good play that you can do. But really, I think my biggest problem with Gary is that it seems like this is all he does. All he does is strength. And, that's not a terrible thing. You might be thinking, well, hey, if you're strong, use strength to your advantage, right? That makes sense. But there's more to it than that. Like, I'll use his other sack as another example of this, where he's going to be going up one-on-one against the Chicago Bears right tackle. Once again, it's a right tackle. And what you're going to see him do is he's going to try to just create contact right there. And he's just going to try to, again, use strength. He's going to try to get to the side and just overpower that Chicago defender. And so that Chicago tackle. And for that Chicago tackle, what he's going to try to do is just push Gary behind Trubisky. Because Gary, he already did a good job of initiating that contact quickly. So at this point, it's not worth trying to just hold him. It's better off to try to push him behind Trubisky. And it's going to work out for Gary. He gets the sack, but only because Trubisky tried to scramble. If Trubisky got rid of that ball when he probably should have, that probably shouldn't have ended up in a sack, and it was kind of just as much a negative from Trubisky as it was from Gary. Now, admittedly, I am nitpicking. That's sort of by the very nature if I'm making a video of why didn't he have more sacks. Well, if I'm going to show the 2 sacks, I'm using those to show why he didn't get more pressures and things of that nature. And I'm nitpicking his sacks because as a whole, you would see this happen a lot throughout the course of when he would play, is that he would just constantly be trying to use strength. Strength was the main thing he would use. He's not someone who's going to try to fool you with footwork. He's not someone who really gets that great of hand placement, but he's very strong. He's 6'5" and 280 pounds. So for an edge rusher, he has a lot of size, and he tries to use that to his advantage. But the problem with that sometimes is a play like this, where, again, one-on-one matchup against the right tackle. This is against the Minnesota's right tackle, and he is going to win his matchup. But you notice what happens is that he's going to, push that tackle very far back, but then Kirk Cousins is able to get the throw off. So, on a play like that, it's kind of like, well, yes, Gary won his matchup. If I'm a PFF grader, I'm giving him a win on that. But it seems like that's a lot of what he was doing, is he would sometimes create a play like that. And that's kind of his highlight in a sense, where it's like he's winning his matchup, but at the end of the day, nothing good is happening from it. He's not creating pressure from it. And also with these tackles, it's not that difficult to just sort of, make one move and push him behind the quarterback if you do that. So listen, it's something. It's not nothing. But, in college, he could just dominate these tackles. He could just, knock them over and get to the quarterback. He can't quite do that in the NFL. The talent level is too big. What Gary needs is a second move. What Gary needs is to start using his footwork more, create a spin move, do something. He needs a second move because just power, it's not going to be able to work consistently. It can work from time to time, but if you're always expecting there to be power, it can have its problems. That being said, it can work out really well. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'll show a highlight reel level play right here where he's going to be going up one-on-one this time against the left tackle. And first, he is going to use power. So that's what he's going to do. Initiate the contact, get that left arm out. Just going to try to overpower him here. Again, and look at how, far bent over he is. Like, don't get me wrong. He's great when it comes to, when it comes to bull rushes, when it comes to using his strength and his size to his advantage. He's great at it. That's why he does it so much. I just think it kind of became a crutch for him in college, and it's been a bit difficult for him to, transition a little bit to the NFL. That's why his stats have suffered to some degree. Now, that tackles, you notice like his feet are very close to another Green Bay player's feet, and he's going to get tangled up. They're both going to fall down here. But watch what Gary does once that happens. He knocks him down, creates pressure on Cousins, and then runs over and delivers a big hit to Stephon Diggs. I mean, just a fun, that's a hustle play right there, which, again, that's not necessarily something that's, going to matter too much, but every now and then it matters, and it's nice to have just someone who's going to hustle like that. And, I think it goes to show, he has the power to knock a guy over. Got some help with the feet getting tangled up, but he still knocks someone over, and then he can get off that, create some pressure, and get a tackle. He had a win against the tackle, he had a pressure, and he had a tackle all in one play. You don't see that happen too often where someone gets a quarterback pressure and a tackle on the same play, unless it's a sack, which didn't happen there. So, just sort of a fun play more than anything, but a good one. And, so that's kind of what I mean. It's like he is really good at that. Like, that's why he got drafted so high in the first place. But the problem is when you're expecting him to, create that power and, just run a bull rush and run something where he's just going straight at you, it's a lot easier to prepare than if you're not exactly sure where he's going. He can make a move, then use his power, get you flat-footed, and, move you and get to the quarterback easier, which I think is something that he's probably going to want to work on a lot in this offseason. And, listen, I mean, if he can live up to his potential and to have the Smith brothers, who aren't really brothers, but they kind of are, just like that's the name, and then, to have Gary, that could be a lethal 1-2-3 combo, which matters. We'll show this play also. What's going to happen is that this is going to be a running play, and it's going to be a right tackle blocking him. So again, he's going to try to use power here. He also does this in the running game. It works better in the running game than it does in the passing game because, it's kind of the opposite when it comes to a run block. Usually the offensive line is trying to fool you more so than when Gary is rushing the passer, then he's trying to fool the offensive line. And so first what Gary is going to do is he's just going to create contact and push him back. Notice how he just pushes him a step back like that. So win, right? Good play. You got him further back. And yeah, I mean, that's good. But at the end of the day, he's not able to get off this block quick enough that this was a 3rd down and 2, and the halfback picks up 3 yards. So again, if another Green Bay player was able to run over and clog up that gap, well, then it's not a 1st down. So you could argue, hey, Gary did his part on that one. He did his role. Nobody else was able to, come in and finish off the play. And I agree with that. But that's kind of my criticism of Gary. Right now he's just a role player. But I don't think he has to be a role player throughout his career. I think right now he is. He already has some value for Green Bay for sure. But if he's ever going to live up to the potential that he has to learn a second move. He has to start doing something else. But at the same time, listen, that can happen. I mean, it kind of reminds me of, I forget exactly what the context was, but it was in hockey. There was a guy who was trying to decide if he wanted to draft a guy who could shoot really well but was very undersized, very skinny, or get a guy who was the right size but wasn't as good of a shooter. And he said, well, it's a lot easier to teach a guy who can shoot really well to gain 10 pounds than it is to teach a guy who is big to shoot a puck. So, I think that's kind of what I feel like here. Like, Gary has, the size thing comes reversed in football, but Gary has the raw tools and physicality to be successful. He just now has to learn how to use it properly, which I think he will. I have faith in Gary. I think he'll surprise some people. He kind of was a project coming into the draft, so it makes sense that he didn't exactly burst onto the scenes. But we expect guys to get great quickly. It doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes it takes them a couple of years. But I think that I saw enough of him his rookie season to believe that he still has that potential and he could burst and have a really good second year. We'll have to wait and see, of course, but that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. How good do you think Gary can be, or do you think he's done and he's a bust? Because some people do feel that way. I always love hearing from you, and of course, as always, thanks for watching.